the China EVs and More podcast. In the next hour or so, my co-host Lei Xing and I will go over the week's most important and interesting news coming out of the global EV, AV, and mobility sectors. What Lei and I discuss today is based on our opinions and should not be taken as investment advice. For those that are new to the show, welcome. And to our loyal listeners and viewers, welcome back. We ask that you smash those subscribe and like buttons so you don't miss anything from us in the future. Lei and I are two of the most knowledgeable people doing this. So please help us get the word out about this podcast to others. My name is Tu Lei. I'm the managing director at Sino Insights, a global management consultancy that helps organizations bring innovative and tech-focused products and services to the transportation and mobility sectors. I write a free weekly newsletter that we pull many of our discussion topics from. You can sign up for it at sinoautoinsights.substack.com, which of course I encourage you to do. Busy looking at new car launches, Lei. Can you please introduce yourself?
I definitely say a spoiled Lei for the last few weeks being in China. I've been in EV heaven. After a 2-week hiatus, we're back. This is your co-host, Lei Xing, former chief editor of China Auto Review. And this is episode 218. 218, we're finally at least on the same, not the same time zone, but maybe the same continent.
Same region of the world.
Same region. I know you've been traveling a bit, and then we'll see you soon. You're already here, but then you have to leave. We'll talk about that. But it's been, and like I said, what a summer it's been. And the trip is about to end for me back in China. But it's probably one of those most active and controversial summer in recent memory in the smart EV space. And momentum changing summer. Wouldn't you agree?
And I'd add that it's not just Chinese electric vehicles in that sector. It's global. That momentum is shifting, power is shifting, and there's more uncertainty than ever with regards to the price war, supply chain challenges in and outside of China. And the one company that you and I could set our watches to is getting pushback. So this is really, really a, let's say, very weird summer so far for electric vehicles.
I'll be honest with you. I haven't paid too much attention on what's been happening outside of China because there's been too much happening inside China, inside the smart EV space. And lucky enough to have attended 3 different launches and reveals from Xiaomi in July and just a couple of nights ago. And then the kind of the beef, it's another part of the bloodbath, the evolution that's happening, not the price cuts, not the price war, but how people are jumping on each other, dissing each other, and maybe misunderstanding each other. That's the kind of the bloodbath that's happening at the same time. And the Onvo L90 and the Li Auto i8, like I said, it's a rivalry. It's becoming a nasty rivalry. Of how the salespeople and some of the upper management are shouting at each other over social media about the type of smear campaigns that are happening for both companies. And Li Xiang just came out with a video of himself, and he's like, we don't want to be the ones doing this. But then you look at this and it's hard selling a vehicle in China these days. I don't know, we see the numbers, but the way you get there is all sorts of ways and tactics. That's
companies are being stretched thin, suppliers are being stretched thin. Price cuts are being scrutinized by the central government. And so it's more important than ever that when you launch a vehicle and announce initial pricing, you put your best foot forward right away. And I think that's not what happened with the Li Auto i8. And it's been getting a lot of negative press in social media. It's more than twice as much as the L90 when you take the battery out of the L90. And so it is getting pretty nasty, but that tells you that this price war almost in year 4 is really, really starting to get to everybody because the central government is complaining about it. They're making sure, at least communicating to the provincial governments that, you know what, you guys don't encourage this stuff. And I don't know how the central government cannot do something more active, because this is the environment that they kind of created, for themselves. And so it is just an extreme environment.
Yeah, and then I talked to some of these PR people, even some of the upper management. They're tired of it. Pointing fingers. He said, she said. And right, and then that controversial i8 heavy duty truck collision stunt ended with 3 companies releasing a joint statement, with Li Auto apologizing, with the Zhongguo Qian, which is the China Automotive Engineering Institute, whatever, apologizing. And that saga seems to be done.
Can you tell people what happened?
So at the Li Auto i8 launch, Li Auto showed a video of the i8 going at 60 kilometers per hour in a head-on collision with a Dongfeng Chenglong heavy-duty truck going at 40 kilometers per hour.
Let me stop you there, Lei. There were a little bit of ridicule by social media because they were saying that the front of the Li Auto i8 was like a ramp.
And all the memes came out.
Caused a severe accident. And so that's why Li Auto came out with this video.
Yeah. So that video came out, the 2 cars, the relative speed is 100 kilometers per hour, right? And then it was showing the cabin of the heavy-duty truck dipping, which is not supposed to happen. And then in the video, on the steering wheel of the truck, it was clearly showing the logo of Dongfeng Chenglong. And then that's how they got upset. And I think it was a mistake, kind of a mistake on Li Auto's part, not covering the logo. And the way the social media works in China, things get blown out of proportion in seconds and causing the outcry, causing I think it made Dongfeng Chenglong famous. They should thank Li Auto for making them, releasing all these statements and posters, shaming Li Auto, and then
generally speaking, they talk about water armies. Can you tell what
water
can
armies?
You tell people what
That's
a water
exactly.
army is?
Water armies are people that leave either positive or really negative messages on a post. And this is an industry in China, by the way. There's people actually that do nothing but post all day. And so the reason of the beef between Li Auto and NIO is that both sides think the other side is employing water armies to say bad things about one's product or the other's product. And I think it's still brewing. It's not ended yet. But speaking of the product itself, I talked about the momentum changing summer. Onvo is going way, way up. And the Li Auto is kind of, I wouldn't say going down, but it's kind of stuck because it had the July numbers was down quite big. And now they're facing this issue with the IA launch, which they had to reset the pricing and the configuration less than a week after the launch, partially due to the Onvo L90, partially due to the customer ordering feedback, and partially due to the competition in the industry. But
really quickly, Lei.
Yep.
The Li Auto, they have an L7, L8, L9. They have a Mega. The L6 through L9, they're a little bit older. They haven't been refreshed as aggressively as some of their competitors. And then the Mega has settled from a sales standpoint and monthly sales, so it's doing okay, but it's an 800,000 RMB car. The i8 came out, very much higher price than the L90, and I just don't think Li Auto thought that Onvo was going to go that low, and so it made the i8 seem extremely expensive relative to what's out in the market currently. So there's a few missteps with Li Auto, but also relatively to their competitors, they're not refreshing their vehicles as quickly or as fast as some of these other competitors are.
Well, Li Auto just launched the updated L series right around the April Auto Show time. So all of their L series are actually recently updated. And then the rhythm was the IA launched first that week on a Tuesday, and then on the Friday, I think, or the Thursday, the Onvo L90 launched with a shocking pricing, but that was already decided many weeks and months ago. And then which kind of caused Li Auto to go back to the drawing board and get rid of the Pro Max Ultra and just have one config available. And then you add on 10,000 RMB to get the screen, I think, the entertainment and the better cockpit. And then that's it.
Right.
When everybody else is going the Pro Max Ultra, Li Auto is like, no, we're going to go back to what happened with the One. So these are things that sometimes they don't. I'll tell you this, it's the rapid iterative reaction to the market, the actions taken by these companies that's causing severe headaches to the legacy brands. There's no way a Volkswagen, there's no way a GM can decide on a repricing of the vehicle in a week, let alone a month. That's the kind of the China speed and the bloodbath and the evolution. Well, we do apologize because I'm in China and the internet sometimes causes issues, but we'll have to manage. I'll continue talking. I mean,
yeah, you keep talking.
Well, yeah. So just sharing a little bit more about the kind of the rhythm, momentum changing, going back to the Onvo L90 was everything that happened with the L90, the planning, the launch, the pre-sale, the getting the vehicles to the showrooms, the test drives, the launch, and then delivery on launch, ramp on launch. I think it was the perfect launch from NIO finally. And now we're talking about we're pointing the latest rumors and are pointing to 10,000, at least 10,000, if not more, or even the management is expecting or striving to get to 10,000 in the first full month deliveries, which I think will happen.
There's a 8 to 10 week lead time currently for the L90.
Yeah,
and that's increased recently.
and
So,
and
go ahead.
think about the L90. Let me give you a frame, point of frame of how not only it's disrupting the 3-row 6-seat SUV market, but the price range in the BAS mode, 179 800,000 is cheaper than, let's say, G7, the XPeng G7. It's cheaper than the G9, which is a 5-seater. So it's disrupting, I guess, multiple segments. And the rhythm that NIO put this vehicle into has been quite well, unlike the previously what has done. And what is the norm in the industry is you do the reveal, you do the pre-sale, you do the launch, and that time usually lags. The gap is quite long. But now I think you're going to see these more succinct launches where the product availability is going to be different, where the customers, they can order the vehicle and then they can get it right away. And it's not the capability, it's the choice. That was shared at there's this interview session, and they talked about it's a choice to go launch delivery on launch, but it's a capability to ramp after launch, after delivery. And that takes planning. I think that's what worked right. But at the end of the day, it's the pricing. I mean, nothing matters more.
Well, to me, it's a synchronized dance, because
it's a great way to put it.
If pricing is aggressive enough, you see crazy amounts of demand. And good examples of the automotive side are Xiaomi, recently, because the SU7, it's been selling quite well consistently for a number of months, and you're not hearing really anything about supply chain issues, component issues. And so that's what Li-Bin and NIO or Onvo have to hope for, that they are really, really experienced now, because they've launched so many different products in Hefei. And so hopefully 10,000 a month isn't really going to be that much of an issue for them. Now, again, it takes planning, but also, Lei, when you're working the supply chain, sourcing, logistics, it takes a lot of coordination, because you're constantly talking to the supplier, asking them when they're shipping their product or their component, and then you're talking to the truck to make sure the truck is moving and is still going to be on time. You know, just think of it like at the airport, right? Like, you can't take off your next flight unless the last flight was there, and the passenger off the plane, the luggage is off the plane, the plane is clean, and then you can bring them on board. So that's what the coordination, and that's why I say it's more like a synchronized dance, right?
Yeah, and then the other important thing is standardizing features, which is a good way to help the supply chain. Because when you do that, and like what Li Auto IA is going to do, is it makes supplying, let's say, the fridge inside the car, it's becoming standard. So if we order 10 vehicles, we know there's going to be 10 fridges. Rather than there's 10 vehicles, there's 5 that has the config with a fridge. That was shared by Li Hong at the interview session after the launch. I think that's also very important, standardizing to make the supply chain more efficient, rather than the customer choosing too much options. That's the other thing I think that I learned. Yeah, that's
the key, because engineers, technical people, they want complexity. They want every feature. Marketing people, they want salespeople. They want every feature. But then the manufacturing guys are like, okay, but if we put every single feature in there, and the supply chain guys are like, well, there's all these different things now that we need to order and make sure everything's there and on time. And so that's why there's always this battle between the engineering folks, the manufacturing folks, and the sales and marketing side, because the supply chain people would just want you to have one SKU with no extra features, and then the marketing and sales people, they need to differentiate the product somehow, and so they want more features, they want more bells and whistles, and so truly great operational companies like an Apple, like a Xiaomi, obviously, they're able to generate demand and fulfill it. And so that's why they're supremely profitable, because they're not giving up sales because lead times are too long, component shortages cause delays, things like that. So I think, and obviously BYD is also another great example of a company that's able to not only create demand, but then build the supply to meet that demand. And that's not easy, especially when you're growing.
Yeah. What Li Bin shared was he really talked about this Onvo L90 from the very beginning, the cost base it's built on, the pricing, the components that go into it. It's an 85 kilowatt hour battery. It's not an 86. It's not an 87. All of these things are part of the synchronized stance that you talked about. It takes long planning. And the execution, I think, has been well done. Something I think that was missing from NIO for quite a long time. But, this is one model. The question now becomes, how long does this momentum continue? How long can they stave off competition? Can they consistently deliver a model or have deliveries over a certain threshold? That has not been the case. So it's something we can look forward to. But at least everything's looking up, at least on the Onvo part, which means the NIO is going to take maybe some hit, possibly. The Firefly seems to be okay, and who would have thought, right?
And this one quick reminder to everyone, we're rounding the corner, heading into the end of summer, into Q3 and Q4, when intensity does dial up significantly as we dash towards the end of the year, and people are scrapping for sales, fighting, clawing, elbowing each other for that additional sale. And I think you raised a great point. Is this a month-long thing? Is this a 2-month-long thing? Because we're cutting to the bone with Onvo at 179.8 already. And so if they can't price cut, and if they do some non-price cut, we could potentially get into negative margin, couldn't we?
Well, I mean, look at the IA, right? The IA, the expected pricing was 350 to 400K. And then when it launched, it was 321,800 to about 370K. And then a week later, the prices were kind of dropped to have one config.
Yeah. So that was, to me, their way of trying to disguise the price cut, because the central government is scrutinizing all that stuff very closely. And I went into a Li Auto retail store in Wukesong. We went to the west side, had dinner had lunch with grandma. So we were at the Wukesong, and they have all those retail stores and restaurants now. And there's a Li Auto retail store across from a Xiaomi.
And there's a huge NIO store there too, the Huaxi Live, right? Huaxi Live, yeah.
I did not, because the NIO store was far away from the Li Auto and Xiaomi store, so I did not get a chance to go to the NIO store. But I'm not a big fan of the Li Auto i8 exterior. It does look like they morph together an L6, L7, and a Mega. And
well,
the proportions are weird.
The way I describe it is the Mega front MPV side profile, a SUV rear, a L8 size with the L9 space. That's what it is. And at this point, I think it really doesn't matter if it's a SUV, if it's an MPV, if it's a whatever you want to call it. I think it's other things. There's something called emotional value, and that frunk seems to be one of the biggest emotional value that's working for the L90. And then the i8 will be the table, will be Captain Li Xiang holding up that table, which became all the memes. And then the P7 a couple of nights ago was throwing these emojis on the AR HUD. These are all like emotional value that you don't think of are that important, but which are quite important actually.
But that's part of it, Lei. That's where they're trying to evolve into what the brand represents.
Yeah.
And they're trying to point to the customer to say, look, we value your your wants, your desires, and this is what we represent. And that's kind of showing some maturity, because it can't be about price all the time, because that's just a race to zero. And if you want to be a global brand, you got to have some sort of brand that represents who you are, not only from a positioning standpoint, but does it also resonate with who you want your customers to be? Because how you get them is not through logic, it's through emotion. And if you think about some of the Western companies, like an Apple, like a Nike, like an Adidas, there's loyalty there because what the brand represents. And so this is where the Chinese EV makers, and I kind of talked to Sam Livingstone about this, where he was like, these cars are all similar features, and if you squint, they kind of look alike. So the next evolution is going to be brand.
Which actually is the point I want to expand a little bit. We talked about this homogeneity quite often previously on the pod, but this time, if you really spend time with, going to these events and feel these vehicles, I mean, I did a test drive. They're totally different animals. Totally. What the brand is about, what the CEO talks about, from many perspectives, I think it would be wrong to just say generally they're all, the same. They're not.
Well, it's as simple as saying none of the seats feel the same when you're driving.
No, right, exactly. I mean, the seating of the i8 versus the Onvo L90, they feel totally different. I personally like the i8 seats. They're a little bit more softer, but
I will say this. I'm a big fan of Li Auto interiors. I think they're really well done. I think the fit finish is super, super nice. I think it's best in class. In my opinion.
Nobody does a happy family, a happy home, a mobile home, an AI home. Nobody does it like Li Auto. And but have they reached a point where they're facing some bottleneck? Possibly, especially given Li Bin, his was pretty adamant about now is the right time to disrupt this large SUV dominated by the EREVs and the plugins. And he thinks this is the right time. And the Onvo L90 seems to be a proof. Given now they also, what the L60 didn't have was now the 2100 or so compatible power swap stations. When the L60 launched, there weren't that many. So sometimes it's about timing, it's about the product, it's about planning. And wherever everything clicks, then you get the perfect result, which is the L90. Not the same can be said for other models.
We have to also remind everyone that for years, Li Auto was solely focused on the China market, which really allowed them to create this positioning of being very family, being a very family-oriented brand. And I think that now we're starting to see that maybe Li Auto, from a branding standpoint, is a bit one-dimensional, but because Neo and XPeng and these other brands have gone abroad, have taken lumps and learned about how to compete in a foreign market where brands are different than what they would compete in China. Maybe that's showing up a little bit in the struggles with the i8 launch.
Yeah, and how the launch event, sometimes I really pay close attention, attending these events, what type of guests they bring, what type of the stars or big shots they bring in to help with the launch. And the three models were totally different, right? The Onvo L90 was Li Bin having a fireside chat with three different families, very down to earth. And then the IA was having this crosstalk, an actor doing some stunts with the vehicle of the AI capabilities. And the P7, it was a bunch of these handsome guys, or mostly pretty ladies, taking photos and doing KOLs, doing live streamings. Totally
That
different.
That P7 looks pretty sharp. It reminds me a bit of a Dodge Charger.
Well, Dodge Charger, the GTR, some pointed to the GTR. I first thought of the EQXX. And then I was talking to Frank Wu today, former head of design for Jie, and I talked about, look at this video showing He Xiaopeng speaking to the car outside of it and with the voice activated functionality. And then, Frank was like, we're ahead of time. It also shows how difficult it is trying to do innovation and make it work and make it sell. Too bad GUA was not, saved or did not survive. But sometimes there's a lot of deja vu moments, to be honest.
Yeah, I think GUA, unfortunately, or G2, have whatever you want to call them, they died for the wrong reason. But that has nothing to do with the quality and design of their vehicles. I think Frank did a tremendous job with the G2 vehicles that we saw. So
yeah.
Anything else, man? I guess we can talk a little bit about, or I could talk a little bit about what I've been up to.
Yeah, please. You being MIA a bit.
So
I know you're busy, though.
So last Wednesday, I came back to Beijing and with my family this time.
Turnaround, huh?
The boys are seeing grandma in Beijing. They actually went to a nature camp for the last couple of days outside of Beijing. It's been hot, but it hasn't been raining that much. And you know this. And so I actually took off on Saturday to go to Singapore for some meetings and to catch up with some friends on my way to Ho Chi Minh, to Saigon, where I currently am. I'm sitting in
a that's
hotel
home.
room.
That's kind of home, right?
Saigon.
That's home.
Yeah, so this is my original OG home, which I never really lived here, but it is where I was born. And so reflections in Singapore, everyone that I met with, friends, potential clients, and some folks that I met with because I'd been pushing out meetings and haven't been to Singapore and Vietnam in quite some time. So a lot of meetings with people that have reached out, potential clients, and every single one of them, hey, have you seen the BYDs on the streets? Have you seen the BYDs on the streets? And so,
yeah. Well, tell them to come over to China, any city, and all you're going to see are sea of BYDs and Teslas and Li Motors and Ions.
So Lei, I am just outside of District 1, downtown Saigon or Ho Chi Minh. So it's officially called Ho Chi Minh, but I was born in Saigon. I wasn't born in Ho Chi Minh City. Most locals still call it Saigon, so that's what I'm going to do as well. I've taken probably 5 or 6 grabs, which is Vietnam's DD, which is Vietnam's Uber. And you can take a moped ride or you can take a car ride. I took a grab from the airport to my hotel, which is about a 45-minute drive. And guess what picked me up? A VinFast, a VF5. So there's in Saigon, I don't think I'm exaggerating. I think 1 of every 5 or 6 cars is a VinFast. So
VinFast is the BYD of Vietnam. I don't know whether that's
well, they're trying to be, but they're going to open a factory in India supposedly. They were supposed to open a factory in North Carolina. That never really happened, and that's not going to happen. So, a lot of fleet vehicles, whether it's Grab drivers or taxis, are using VinFast vehicles. And I was in the car for 45 minutes. It's nice-ish. I think the car that I got in the most is a VF5. So it's like a hatchback, a little bit bigger. I want to say it's about the size of an Atto 3, maybe a little bit smaller.
UN Plus. Okay, so like an A-class compact SUV. Yeah.
Yeah, but the current VinFast VF5 is probably like the UN Plus 5 years ago, the fit and finish and everything. So I think it's about $20,000 here. And if VinFast wants to compete in other countries in Southeast Asia, that's going to be a hard sell against the BYD. They're not going to have home court advantage like they do here in Saigon, and so I don't begrudge them at all. I want them to win. One thing that is a bit ironic is that VinFast is run by the richest man in Vietnam, but he's not like a like Elon Musk billionaire. He's modest when it comes to other billionaires around the world, and he launched this company 6 years ago, and the fact that he can build so many cars, and Rivian and Lucid and some of these other players are still struggling it blows my mind. It's a little bit confusing, to be honest with you. And so part of VinFast's challenge is that they make these cars and then they sell them to entities that the founder owns. So it's like same pair of pants, different pockets. So
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think they were all over the news and plays 2-3 years ago, 2021, 2022. They're all over the map, right? And now we don't quite hear them, at least on the US side. They try to sell. I think they did deliver some vehicles, but it looks like the whole market, home sweet home. But outside of Vietnam, I don't know. Haven't heard too much.
The key is that we can argue accounting and profitability at a later time. The fact of the matter is they're building cars. The cars are getting mileage on streets in Vietnam. And so those are lessons that if they can actually get an injection of capital and really refine the engineering a little bit, refine the fit and finish of these vehicles, then they got a shot. But Vietnam is not China, right? The Vietnam is about 90 million people, 95 million people. Obviously, China is 1.4 billion. So that's why BYD can be BYD, because BYD is 90%, 85% China sales. In VinFast, if they have 60, 70, 80% share in Vietnam, it still doesn't equate to 5 million cars being sold. Okay, that's not going to happen for VinFast in the Vietnamese market. So these are the types of challenges that they still need to overcome to be a player, not only in Vietnam, but other parts of the world. And it looks like they're focusing on the smaller vehicles, and hence moving aggressively in South Asia and Southeast Asia. So,
yeah. Any Chinese EVs at all on the roads?
So saw some BYDs.
Oh,
So, and then
who
there's
else?
when you leave the airport, there's a billboard, a BYD billboard that you see, and you don't see that many, but you see them.
Okay.
I've probably taken a picture of 3 or 4. So let me finish that statement. Of the 5 or 6 grabs I've taken, I think 4 times it's been a VinFast. So it is the ubiquitous ride-hailing and taxi car for Vietnam. Any other observations? I fly into Singapore. I fly out of Singapore. Customs. I have carry-on. I have carry-on. I don't have a check-in. 15 minutes. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Yeah.
Vietnam, I flew in at 2:30, and it felt like every single plane that was going to Vietnam flew in at 2:30, and customs took 2.5 hours. So,
yeah.
And I wrote in this week's newsletter, it feels like a microcosm because Singapore is so efficient. And, so my friend corrected me. I wrote that I visited a friend and he has a Maserati. It's 8 years old. And I wrote in the newsletter, he paid $200,000 for it. And that's by design because the Singaporean government doesn't want traffic jam, doesn't want noise pollution, doesn't want pollution. And so he WhatsApped me and he was like, I actually paid $192,000 for it. So I know he reads the newsletter. But the other thing that they don't want local Singaporeans to do, drink. Because a beer in Singapore is about $10 or $11 US.
Ooh.
So visited a friend who lives in, I won't say because I don't want to get his local watering hole overpopulated, but let's just say that we found a spot where you could buy big Sapporos for 7 Sing. So that's a win, baby. That's a win. So, and then Manlay, the food in Singapore, the food in Vietnam is just, I need to go on a carb-free diet for like 6 months after this trip because the hawker centers in Singapore, man, forget it.
You're gonna get a lot.
So good.
This trip, I feel like there's a lot more options of either vegetarian or healthy kind of. There's that avocado tree that's becoming quite popular for Waimai, with the kale and all of these drink places. The Haitis, they're coming out with these drinks that are supposedly healthy. So. Yeah, off topic, but
anyways, that's all I have, man.
Yeah.
Let me check questions. So here. Speaking of brand differentiation, this is from SPX. SPX, thank you for always being a loyal viewer and watcher.
Thank you.
Let me see here. Speaking of brand differentiation, how's the interoperability among charging networks, aka BYD, XPeng, NIO charge at Li Auto stations and vice versa? What % network does plug-in charge?
Well, it's very interoperable. You can charge at anybody else's chargers. And NIO has been the only company that has publicly released the data that was it over 90% of the charged electricity are from other brands at their chargers. Right. So it's quite common to see one brand of EV charging at the charger of another brand. I don't think people think about interoperability at all. Wherever you can find one, you just charge. There's taxis that can charge at an XPeng charger. That's a BAIC branded EV.
The West
it's a non-issue.
The West seems to put up walls, and at least the charging infrastructure folks, the EVGos, the Electrify Americas, they don't have enough charging to go around. So, but I'll tell you what, Lei, I have probably 10 apps on my phone for charging. 10 apps. I have PlugShare, I have Electrify America, I have EVgo, I have ChargePoint,
Yes.
I have,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, man. I have RedE. So this is one of the reasons it's so frustrating owning an electric vehicle. To your point, Lei, why can't I just go to anyone?
Guess
First
which
of all, there's
app
not
you...
enough of them. Like, oh my gosh, so...
Yeah. No. So guess which app you use to charge an EV in China. Guess which app.
Oh, the WeChat.
Exactly. There's no other app.
Yeah, so he has a follow-up. If charging networks are not walled off to competitor cars, why spend billions to build promise and promote them for PR? For example, Xiaomi has no own charging network, but sells just fine.
I think it's a business decision. It's like NIO and Li Auto, XPeng as well. They've been very adamant about building their own network to not only work with their own vehicles. The Li Auto 5C charging, probably the best vehicle to charge at the 5C charging are the Li Autos themselves. It's a piece of mind.
The user experience is optimized for the branded vehicles.
Yeah, and it's a peace of mind for the owners who buy these brands. Oh, okay, Li Auto has over 3,000 supercharging stations that are all over the place. NIO has how many of these swapping and combined charging stations. And some other ones like Xiaomi, they don't feel like that's their differentiation that they need to work on. Right? It's something else for Xiaomi.
I actually think that also it's a scarce commodity in other regions of the world, meaning charging infrastructure, charging stations. They're more scarce. So having your own network is a customer engagement thing. In China, at least in the major tiers, the major corridors for the tier 1 cities, there's plenty of charging infrastructure, probably every few kilometers. So it's not this scarce item that would allow you to differentiate yourself or engage with your customer better than your competitor.
Yeah. I mean, at the Li Auto i8 launch, Li Xiang said the biggest asset, the most expensive asset for the i8 is indeed the supercharging stations.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way he put it.
And that's the other thing. It's supercharging. It's not these trickle charger type of level 1. So one thing that was pretty surprising I saw, and I posted it in the newsletter this week, was Inside EVs had said charging infrastructure in the United States increased significantly. And there's this like second round of charging infrastructure folks like Walmart and a couple other companies. And what they're doing is putting level 2 with max output being 350, 400 kilowatt hours. So despite the Biden cuts or the Trump cuts to Biden's EV policies, I think we're still seeing resilience in some of the supporters of electric vehicles. Maybe we'll lose that momentum because that was already happening, so they couldn't just cancel it. But there'll probably be a dip in charging infrastructure, or at least shrinking of charging infrastructure year over year kind of thing, later this year or early next year. So
yeah, I've been paying too much attention like I said, what's happening outside of China.
So, all right, man. I don't have anything else. How about you?
So the only other thing is I went to the World Robot Conference this afternoon in Yizhuang. When you come back, if you have time, maybe take your sons to check it out. Man, it's a sea of robots of every shape, size, two-legged, four-legged, half-bodied, humanoids, automation, logistics, health, companions, and not a single. There's 3 halls of these robot companies. I don't remember seeing one foreign company. It's madness. It was crazy.
Yeah, I planned on trying to go, but maybe you're right. Maybe taking the boys would be kind of cool for them to see. They'd probably get bored in 15 minutes, but
yeah, I'll post some videos on social. But it was interesting. And Hesai and RoboSense were there. They were only showing applications for robots,
right.
which is, I think, becoming a huge revenue opportunity for these traditional Lidar players that are supplying EVs with Lidars.
Well, RoboSense had partnered with a food delivery autonomous in CES, so we saw them there. But anyways, everyone, thank you for your patience. If there was any issues, it sounds like my voice was not carrying very well, but for some reason you can hear me.
It's fine on my side.
So apologies for that, and appreciate your patience. I'm going to be still traveling for another week, and so we'll try to still have China EVs and more next week, but we'll post for sure the time and the date. So everyone, thanks for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We will try to talk to you next week.
Good night, everyone.
That brings us to the end of this week's show. Lei and I thank you for tuning in. My name is Tu Lei, and you can find me on Twitter at Sino Auto Insight. That's SinoAutoInsight. You can find Lei on Twitter at LeiXing77. That's LEIXING77. If you wouldn't mind rating and or reviewing us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you grab your podcast from, we'd appreciate that as well. Even better, if you enjoy this show, please tell your friends about it. Please join us again next week as we track down all the latest news on China, EVs, and more.